German officers, steeped in the swift victories of the Blitzkrieg, openly mocked American soldiers. Their intelligence reports painted a picture of soft, unprepared civilians, ill-suited for the brutal realities of modern warfare. They dismissed America's industrial might as irrelevant, its diverse population as a weakness. But as the war raged and the first captured GIs began filling prisoner compounds, a chilling reality dawned. These were not the weaklings of their propaganda. These were massive, determined men, forged in the crucible of Pearl Harbor's fury and an industrial mobilization unlike anything the world had ever seen. The mockery would soon turn to profound, unsettling dread. On December 7th, 1941, the tranquil Sunday morning shattered into 1,000 pieces over Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The surprise attack by the Imperial Japanese Navy plunged the United States into a global conflict it had long sought to avoid. The air, thick with the smell of burning oil and the acrid taste of fear, quickly transformed into a potent cocktail of outrage and an unyielding national resolve. Across the Atlantic, German intelligence officers, observing America's hesitant entry into the European theater, scoffed with disdain. Their reports, circulated among the Wehrmacht's high command, painted a dismissive picture of the American military. They spoke of an army of amateurs, soft from years of peace and prosperity, lacking the discipline and martial spirit forged in the crucible of European conflict. These assessments were not merely academic, they were infused with a deep-seated ideological bias, a belief in the inherent superiority of the Aryan race and the disciplined German soldier over the perceived decadence of American democracy. German propaganda, echoing these sentiments with venomous glee, gleefully portrayed American soldiers as effete, pampered, and utterly incapable of standing against the battle-hardened veterans of the Third Reich. They pointed to America's relatively small standing army, its diverse population, and its perceived lack of a coherent warrior tradition as irrefutable evidence of its inherent weakness. The swift, decisive victories of the Blitzkrieg across Poland, France, and the Low Countries had instilled in the German High Command an almost unshakable belief in their own military superiority. They had crushed the old European powers with a combination of unprecedented speed, technological innovation, and ruthless efficiency. Why should America, a nation they viewed as a chaotic melting pot of disparate peoples, a land of farmers and factory workers, pose any serious threat to their meticulously planned and executed campaigns? Their early war European victories had bred a dangerous overconfidence, a hubris that would prove to be their undoing. Yet, even as the mockery flowed freely from Berlin's propaganda ministries, a profoundly different reality was taking shape across the vast American landscape. From the dusty plains of Ohio, where young men traded plows for rifles, to the sprawling ranches of Texas, where cowboys became tank drivers, and from the sun-drenched farms of California to the bustling, patriotic streets of New York, recruiters were witnessing an unprecedented surge of national unity and determination. Young men, and increasingly women, lined up for blocks outside recruitment offices, eager to avenge the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor and defend their nation's cherished freedoms. American commanders, like the visionary General George C. Marshall, understood the monumental task ahead. They knew their army was small, largely untested, and woefully unprepared for a global war of such immense scale. But they also knew the immense untapped potential of their nation, its vast and adaptable industrial capacity, its deep well of human resources, and its unique spirit of pragmatic innovation and relentless optimism. Training officers, many of them grizzled veterans of World War I or the small, forgotten conflicts of the interwar period, faced the daunting challenge of transforming millions of civilians into effective, disciplined soldiers in record time. They were men like Sergeant Major John Bull Riley, a formidable, no-nonsense veteran from a small coal mining town in Pennsylvania, who had seen enough combat to know that true courage wasn't born in a barracks, but forged in the heart under immense pressure. He and thousands of dedicated drill sergeants like him began the arduous, relentless process of drilling, marching, instructing, and hardening raw recruits. These recruits came from every corner of America, representing its vast social and economic tapestry. Farm boys who knew hard labor and the rhythms of the land, city kids who possessed street smarts and an innate adaptability, college students with sharp minds eager to apply their intellect, and recent immigrants who sought to prove their unwavering loyalty to their new home. Their inherent diversity, which German intelligence viewed as a profound weakness and a source of disunity, was in fact a profound strength, bringing a myriad of practical skills, unique perspectives, and an unyielding determination to the fight that transcended any single background. Intercepted German communications, often filled with derisive laughter and confident predictions of American collapse, only served to fuel the American resolve, hardening their collective will. German strategists, blinded by their own ideological prejudices and the intoxicating successes of their early campaigns, utterly failed to grasp the fundamental difference in American warfare. They understood war as a clash of professional armies, a test of tactical brilliance and martial prowess, a contest of elite units. They did not comprehend a nation that could, almost overnight, retool its entire industrial base for total war, turning massive automobile factories into tank plants, refrigerator manufacturers into aircraft producers, and textile mills into uniform factories. Their military doctrine, meticulously honed on the battlefields of Europe over centuries, presumed a conventional enemy, one that would fight by established rules and break under sustained, overwhelming pressure. They simply could not fathom a nation that would redefine the very meaning of overwhelming pressure. The strategic situation, as perceived by the Germans, was deceptively clear. America was geographically distant, politically perceived as divided, and militarily inexperienced. Its soldiers, they confidently believed, would be soft, lacking the necessary will to endure the unimaginable horrors of modern combat. German military thinking, deeply rooted in a long history of European power struggles and a rigid class structure, simply could not conceive of a nation that could mobilize its entire society, its entire economy, and its entire spirit for total war on such an unimaginable, unprecedented scale. They saw a nation of consumers, obsessed with material comfort, not a nation of warriors. They saw a democracy, which they equated with inherent weakness, indecision, and internal squabbling, not a system capable of unprecedented unity and singular purpose when truly challenged to its core. Their miscalculation was monumental. Yet even as the German High Command continued its dismissive assessments, the colossal gears of the American war machine were grinding inexorably into motion. The attack on Pearl Harbor had not broken America. It had galvanized it, uniting a diverse people under a common, righteous cause. The sleeping giant had been awakened, and its response, though initially slow and seemingly clumsy, was rapidly gathering an unstoppable, terrifying momentum. Recruiters worked tirelessly, bringing in millions of eager volunteers and draftees. Training camps sprang up across the nation, transforming vast tracts of land into proving grounds for a new kind of army, an army of citizen soldiers. Factories, once producing consumer goods for a booming peacetime economy, now churned out weapons, vehicles, and supplies at a rate that defied all previous industrial benchmarks and expectations. Despite the continued German mockery, despite their confident predictions of an easy victory, the machine was starting, and it was unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. The sheer scale of the American mobilization, fueled by a deep-seated desire for justice and a pragmatic, innovative understanding of the monumental task at hand, was about to unleash a force that would fundamentally alter the course of human history, a force that the Germans, in their profound arrogance, had utterly failed to comprehend. The world was about to witness the true meaning of American resolve, a resolve born not of ancient martial tradition, but of a fierce love for freedom, an unparalleled capacity for innovation, and an industrial production capability that would drown the Axis in a sea of steel and fire. The initial laughter from Berlin would soon turn to a grim, terrified silence, then to a desperate losing struggle against an adversary they had so foolishly, so catastrophically underestimated. The transformation of America into a global war machine was a spectacle of unprecedented scale and breathtaking speed, a testament to a nation's capacity for rapid, decisive action when truly provoked. Across the vast continent, the nation hummed with a new, urgent rhythm, a relentless pulse of production and preparation. Training camps, from the sweltering heat of Fort Benning in Georgia to the rugged coastal terrain of Camp Pendleton in California, operated at maximum capacity, their parade grounds echoing with the sharp bark of drill sergeants and the rhythmic cadence of millions of marching boots. What were once sleepy rural landscapes or barren desert expanses were now bustling, self-contained cities of military activity, meticulously designed to transform millions of raw recruits into disciplined, combat-ready fighting units in a matter of months. In Detroit, the undisputed heart of American industry, massive automobile factories that once rolled out gleaming sedans and family cars now churned out M4 Sherman tanks and B-24 Liberator bombers, their assembly lines running with relentless efficiency 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The deafening roar of machinery became the omnipresent soundtrack of a nation at war. A powerful, tangible testament to its unparalleled industrial might and its unwavering commitment to victory. Recruitment centers in every small town, from the quiet, historic hamlets of New England to the bustling, diverse port cities of the Pacific Northwest, continued to process an endless, patriotic stream of volunteers and draftees. Diverse Americans from all walks of life answered the call with a unified purpose. Farm boys, accustomed to grueling physical labor and the unforgiving rhythms of nature, city workers with innate mechanical aptitude and a knack for problem-solving, college students eager to apply their intellect and leadership skills, and recent immigrants ready to prove their unwavering loyalty to their new home. This vibrant melting pot of backgrounds, once seen as a potential weakness and a source of disunity by German observers, became an undeniable, profound strength, fostering a pragmatic adaptability, a collective ingenuity, and a resilient spirit that was uniquely American. The challenge was truly immense, transforming millions of civilians into highly effective soldiers in record time, equipping massive armies with the latest weaponry and gear, transporting these formidable forces across the treacherous U-boat-infested Atlantic and vast Pacific Oceans, and coordinating logistics on an unprecedented global scale that defied all previous military undertakings. The American approach to these monumental challenges was characterized by pragmatic innovation, a relentless pursuit of efficiency, and an unwavering can-do attitude that permeated every level of society. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly in laboratories and workshops, often around the clock, to develop groundbreaking new technologies and dramatically improve existing ones. From advanced radar systems that could detect enemy aircraft at great distances to the mass production of penicillin, which would save countless lives. Industrialists, often fierce competitors in peacetime, now collaborated seamlessly, sharing patents and expertise to streamline production processes and maximize output for the war effort. The nation's industrial efficiency, meticulously honed by decades of mass production and consumer demand, was now fully and singularly dedicated to the war. Diversity was not just tolerated, but actively embraced as a critical source of strength. A farm boy's practical skills in mechanics, carpentry, or even animal husbandry found new, vital applications in maintaining vehicles, constructing fortifications, or navigating unfamiliar terrain. A city worker's experience with complex machinery translated directly into expertise with tanks, artillery, or advanced aircraft systems. College students brought critical thinking, strategic planning, and problem-solving skills to intelligence, communications, and operational planning. Immigrants, often with first-hand experience of totalitarian regimes and the loss of their homelands, fought with a fierce, unyielding determination for their new home and its democratic ideals. Protagonists on the home front, from the highest echelons of command to the humblest factory floor, worked impossible, exhausting hours. Drill sergeants, their voices hoarse from constant shouting and instruction, pushed recruits to their absolute physical and mental limits, instilling the discipline, resilience, and combat readiness essential for survival. Factory workers, many of them women stepping into roles traditionally held by men, toiled around the clock in deafening conditions, their hands shaping the steel, aluminum, and rubber that would turn the tide of the war. Logistics officers, often the unsung heroes of the conflict, coordinated massive, intricate supply chains, ensuring that food, ammunition, fuel, medical supplies, and replacement parts reached the front lines across thousands of miles of ocean and hostile territory with astonishing precision. Their meticulous planning, innovative solutions, and tireless execution were the indispensable backbone of the entire war effort, a logistical feat that dwarfed any previous military undertaking in human history. From the German perspective, the mockery continued, though perhaps with a growing, unsettling undercurrent of unease that belied their outward confidence. Propaganda broadcasts still dismissed American capability, portraying their soldiers as soft, their equipment as inferior, and their national resolve as fleeting and easily broken. They confidently predicted that American soldiers would break easily in combat, unable to withstand the shock and brutality of the Wehrmacht's seasoned, battle-hardened forces. They clung stubbornly to the belief that America's industrial output, while undeniably impressive in raw numbers, could not possibly compensate for what they perceived as a fundamental lack of martial spirit, strategic acumen, and the inherent discipline of the German soldier. They believed their superior training, tactical doctrine, and ideological purity would easily overcome any mere material advantage the Americans might bring to bear. This was a critical, fatal miscalculation. Yet American resilience proved to be far more profound and deeply rooted than German strategists could ever comprehend. Despite the pervasive skepticism from abroad, despite the enormous and often overwhelming task ahead, an infectious, unwavering optimism permeated the nation, fueled by a deep belief in their cause. Families, though heartbroken to send their sons, husbands, and fathers to war, did so with a profound sense of duty, sacrifice, and national pride. Communities rallied together, organizing massive scrap drives, enduring strict rationing of food and essential goods, and buying war bonds with fervent patriotism, all contributing to the collective national effort. The can-do spirit, a quintessential hallmark of American identity, was amplified 1,000-fold, transforming seemingly insurmountable obstacles into challenges to be overcome with ingenuity and grit. The nation was united, not by authoritarian decree or ideological coercion, but by a shared purpose, a common enemy, and a deep, abiding belief in the democratic ideals they were fighting to preserve. The chapter ends showing that despite the persistent German mockery, the American military machine was rapidly becoming a formidable, undeniable reality. The sheer scale of the mobilization, the rapid and efficient transformation of millions of civilians into highly trained soldiers, and the relentless, staggering output of its factories were creating a military force unlike any the world had ever seen, a force that would soon reshape the global balance of power. The initial trickle of American troops and equipment into the European and Pacific theaters would soon become a torrent, a relentless, overwhelming tide that would test the very limits of German and Japanese resistance. The mockery from Berlin, once so confident and dismissive, was slowly but surely being drowned out by the thunderous roar of American industry and the determined, unwavering march of its citizen soldiers. The formidable reality of America's war machine was no longer a distant, theoretical threat. It was an undeniable, rapidly approaching force that would soon confront the Axis powers head-on, proving that a free people, united by a common cause and fueled by an indomitable spirit, could achieve the impossible. The world was about to learn that American strength was not just in its numbers, but in its spirit, its ingenuity, its unparalleled capacity for production, and its unwavering commitment to ultimate victory. The turning point arrived not with a single dramatic battle that instantly shifted the tide, but with a series of increasingly unsettling and contradictory reports filtering back to German high command from the various fronts. The initial engagements in North Africa, then the brutal grinding campaigns in Italy, and finally the monumental, audacious landings in Normandy, began to reveal an American soldier fundamentally different from the caricature so meticulously painted by German propaganda. These were emphatically not the soft, pampered civilians they had been led to expect, nor the undisciplined rabble their intelligence had predicted. These were fighting men, often displaying unexpected ferocity, remarkable resilience, and a tactical capability that defied all previous German assumptions and doctrinal beliefs. German intelligence reports, once filled with dismissive assessments and confident predictions of American collapse, now began to show alarming anomalies. American units that, according to established German doctrine, should have broken under sustained, overwhelming pressure, were instead holding ground with stubborn, unyielding tenacity. American logistics, which should have collapsed under the immense strain of transatlantic supply lines and the complexities of global warfare, were instead supplying massive armies with an efficiency that bordered on the miraculous, a logistical feat previously thought impossible, and the soft Americans were not only holding their own, but were actively capturing well-fortified German positions with a relentless, aggressive drive that surprised and unnerved their veteran opponents. Personified, this growing confusion and cognitive dissonance could be vividly seen in the furrowed brow of Oberstleutnant Klaus Richter, a sharp, analytical intelligence officer stationed in occupied France. Initially, he had dismissed early reports of American tenacity and combat effectiveness as isolated incidents, mere exaggerations by overstressed frontline troops, or the result of sheer luck. But as the patterns emerged with increasing frequency and consistency, a chilling, undeniable realization began to dawn upon him. His carefully constructed understanding of the enemy, based on years of ingrained prejudice and flawed intelligence, was fundamentally and catastrophically flawed. Field commanders, facing unexpected and fierce resistance in the dense hedgerows of Normandy or the unforgiving mountains of Italy, found themselves in heated debates, struggling to reconcile conflicting data. Their battle-hardened soldiers reported fierce American fighting spirit and innovative tactics, while official doctrine and propaganda stubbornly insisted on American weakness and incompetence. Analysts in Berlin struggled desperately to reconcile the brutal reality on the ground with the deeply ingrained prejudices and ideological biases of their military philosophy. The doctrinal conflict was stark and irreconcilable. German military philosophy based on rigid hierarchy, an elite warrior culture, and an unwavering belief in the inherent superiority of the German soldier was encountering an American approach based on individual initiative, overwhelming technological superiority, and an almost limitless material advantage, all underpinned by a democratic spirit of adaptability. German arrogance, however, proved to be an incredibly powerful and dangerous blindfold. Many within the High Command dismissed the unsettling reports as mere exaggerations by demoralized frontline troops, or stubbornly attributed American successes solely to their overwhelming material superiority, steadfastly refusing to acknowledge any genuine fighting spirit or tactical prowess. They win because they have more tanks, more planes, more everything, not because they are better soldiers, was a common, comforting refrain, a self-serving lie that allowed them to maintain their self-deception and avoid confronting the uncomfortable truth. They refused to acknowledge that American soldiers, far from being soft or undisciplined, were proving themselves to be remarkably adaptable, incredibly resourceful, and fiercely determined fighters. The very idea that a democratic nation composed of such diverse backgrounds could produce such formidable, effective fighters was anathema to their totalitarian ideology and their racial theories. They simply could not, or perhaps would not, acknowledge the true, terrifying nature of the adversary unfolding before them, a force that was rapidly gaining momentum and experience. Then came the first direct confrontations, where German officers saw captured American soldiers up close, in the flesh, in prisoner compounds. Expecting demoralized, poorly trained and physically unimpressive troops, perhaps even sickly or weak, they were instead confronted with a shocking, undeniable reality that shattered their preconceived notions. These GIs were often physically imposing, many well over 6 feet tall, clearly well-fed, and radiating a quiet, unyielding confidence even in the grim circumstances of captivity. Their uniforms, though often mud-stained and torn from combat, were of good quality and practical design, and their equipment, even when surrendered, spoke of robust engineering and mass production. The diversity among them was striking and undeniable. Farm boys with calloused hands and practical, earthy skills, urban workers with technical knowledge and street smarts, college-educated soldiers who displayed sharp, tactical thinking and an articulate demeanor even in their answers to interrogations. Their morale, despite the circumstances of their capture and the uncertainty of their future, was often surprisingly high, marked by a stubborn refusal to be broken or intimidated. The shock was profound and deeply unsettling. These were not the soft Americans of propaganda, the effete, pampered consumers they had been taught to despise and underestimate. These were tough, resilient men, capable of enduring immense hardship and fighting with fierce, unwavering determination. The carefully constructed image of the American soldier, meticulously cultivated by years of German propaganda and ideological indoctrination, shattered irrevocably before their very eyes. The realization began to sink in, slowly but inexorably. They faced an adversary fundamentally different from their assumptions, an enemy whose strength lay not just in overwhelming numbers or superior machines, but in the indomitable spirit, pragmatic ingenuity, and inherent capability of its individual soldiers. Yet even then, many German officers struggled to fully comprehend the sheer, staggering scale of American mobilization, the boundless depth of its industrial capacity, and the unwavering democratic resolve of its entire people. They saw the individual, imposing GI, but still failed to grasp the colossal unified force that stood behind him, ready to overwhelm them with an unstoppable tide of men and material. The seeds of doubt were sown, but the full, terrifying truth of America's might was still unfolding, a truth that would ultimately lead to their catastrophic undoing. The initial mockery had given way to confusion, then to a dawning, unsettling dread, and finally to a grim, inescapable recognition of their fatal miscalculation. As the war progressed into its final, brutal stages and Germany faced the inevitable, crushing reality of defeat, the full, terrifying scope of American military power became undeniably clear, even to the most stubborn and ideologically blinded German officers. For those now held in Allied prisoner compounds across Europe, the evidence was everywhere, inescapable and overwhelmingly tangible. They witnessed the sheer, staggering scale of the American military firsthand. Massive GIs, often towering over their former captors, stood guard with an air of quiet authority and unwavering confidence. Endless convoys of American trucks, tanks, jeeps, and supply vehicles rumbled past their barbed wire enclosures, carrying an inexhaustible supply of men, ammunition, fuel, and materiel, a stark contrast to the desperate, dwindling resources of the collapsing Wehrmacht. The skies above were utterly dominated by formations of American bombers and fighters, symbols of an overwhelming air superiority that had systematically dismantled German industry, infrastructure, and morale. The industrial capacity that produced this relentless torrent of equipment seemed limitless, churning out replacements faster than anything could be destroyed, a testament to a nation that had truly turned its entire economy into a war machine. The climate of victory that permeated the Allied lines was not merely a result of isolated tactical brilliance, though that was certainly present in abundance. It was a victory earned through relentless, pragmatic innovation, unyielding national determination, and an industrial might that had no historical precedent, dwarfing all previous military-industrial efforts. This transformation of warfare understanding was profound and permanent. Wars were no longer won solely through tactical genius, the bravery of elite units, or the martial spirit of a professional army, but through unprecedented industrial scale, meticulous logistical mastery, and the total, unified mobilization of an entire nation's resources and spirit. America had proven, beyond any doubt, that a democracy, when truly challenged to its core, could outproduce, out-organize, and ultimately out-fight any authoritarian system, no matter how disciplined or ideologically driven. The lasting consequences of this monumental effort reshaped the post-war world in ways that continue to resonate today. America emerged from the conflict not just as a victor, but as an undisputed global superpower, its economic and military might unparalleled, and its influence extending across every continent. It had proven that democracy and industrial capitalism, far from being soft, inefficient, or decadent, could mobilize for total war more effectively, more sustainably, and with greater popular support than the centralized totalitarian systems of the Axis powers. The American can-do spirit, once dismissed by its enemies as naive optimism or simple-mindedness, had been validated on the brutal battlefields of Europe and the Pacific, demonstrating an extraordinary national capacity to overcome seemingly impossible challenges through ingenuity, hard work, and collective will. The fate of the protagonists, the millions of ordinary Americans who became extraordinary soldiers, was varied and deeply personal. Millions of American soldiers returned home to small towns and bustling cities, many never publicly recognized for the immense sacrifices they made or the profound, world-altering impact they had. They quietly reintegrated into civilian life, picking up where they left off, but carrying the indelible marks of war, the quiet pride of having served, and the deep satisfaction of having proven something fundamental about American capability and national resolve. They had shown the world that the true strength of a nation lay not in its military parades or its dictatorial pronouncements, but in its people, their ingenuity, their adaptability, and their collective, unwavering will to defend freedom. The German officers who survived the war carried with them a different kind of knowledge, the bitter, undeniable truth that their assumptions about American weakness, their mockery, and their ideological prejudices were catastrophically, fatally wrong. They had witnessed the full, terrifying might of a nation they had so foolishly underestimated, a lesson etched into their very souls, a grim testament to their misjudgment. The themes of this era resonate powerfully through history. The enduring legacy of American military transformation, the critical importance of never underestimating an adversary, and the powerful validation of the American can-do spirit when applied to the crucible of total warfare. It was a testament to the lasting impact of an industrial democracy mobilized for conflict, a model that would define global power dynamics for decades to come and shape the Cold War. Statistics alone tell a staggering, almost unbelievable story. Over 16 million Americans mobilized for service, thousands of ships and planes produced at rates previously unimaginable, and a scale of logistics unprecedented in human history, moving entire armies and their vast supplies across thousands of miles of vast oceans and continents. If recognition for this monumental achievement was delayed in the immediate aftermath of the war, as the world grappled with reconstruction and a new geopolitical landscape, historians later meticulously documented the transformation. Archives, once classified and hidden from public view, revealed the staggering scale of mobilization, the intricate planning, and the sheer human effort involved in every aspect of the war effort. Interviews with the last surviving veterans provided poignant first-hand accounts of the challenges, the camaraderie, and the ultimate triumphs. This narrative of American capability, born from the ashes of Pearl Harbor and forged in the fires of global conflict, was reintegrated into the national identity as a powerful, enduring example of what a free people united by a common purpose could achieve when truly challenged. The final reflection on this operation proved something fundamental and enduring about American capacity to confront seemingly impossible challenges and emerge not just having survived, but having decisively dominated. It was a story of how ordinary Americans from every walk of life did extraordinary things, how a nation demonstrated an innovation and scale that became an enduring part of its national identity and global reputation. The determination born from the shock and outrage of Pearl Harbor had not only changed the course of history, but had forged a new global order, demonstrating the unparalleled power and resilience of a united industrial democracy. The initial mockery from Berlin had long ceased, replaced by a grudging respect and ultimately by the undeniable, overwhelming evidence of American supremacy. The world had learned a profound, unforgettable lesson about the sleeping giant, awakened and unleashed. If this deep dive into W2 history captivated you, hit that subscribe button. Join our community for more untold stories, historical analyses, and dramatic narratives. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on America's incredible wartime transformation. Your engagement fuels our passion for history.